Got a new 3D printer. Let's paint a big old mini.
Bet you're just gonna paint it with an airbrush.
Daryl, what are you...
Cheater. Airbrush cheater.
Dude, I'm trying to record a vid here.
Yeah, cheater vid for fellow cheaters.
Get the...
Mom!
Hey there, friends. Big minis are an excuse for us to stretch our artisan fartisan wings and really just slap some paint around. I don't subscribe to the ideal that you need to use an airbrush in order to get a good paint job on a big miniature. So today we're going to experiment. I'm going to try a new approach to painting big minis, and we'll see how it goes. Let's see how bad I screw this up. This Sheila is an ancient green guardian from my buddy Danny's Kickstarter, which is still active, and you can check the link below if you'd like. And it stands a whopping 8 inches tall, 10 inches long, and 10 inches wide wingtip to wingtip. After using some epoxy sculpt to quickly fill a few seams, we take her outside for a shower in rattle can goodness. I'm purposely using a really bright green here for our primer coat, and then I'm going to use a halo of a bright yellow from above, and then a straight white shot from above for our final bright highlights. Now, there's some black magic behind why I'm priming her so bright here, and we'll get to that in a little bit. After letting that primer fully cure overnight, I take her back to the painting desk and I bust out the oil paints. Wait, no, do not click next video. Oil paints do not need to be something you need to be afraid of. You don't need to know a whole lot about them in order to use them effectively. I know very little. Really, the most important thing we need to keep in mind in working with oil paints is that they're thinned down and we clean our brush with mineral spirits instead of water. Really, after that, we can learn some more things as we go, but that's really the most important thing. Now, oils come right out of the tube very thick. And again, we can thin them down to a varying degree based on our needs. And there are a lot of fancy techniques with oil paints that can be done with thick oils all the way down to very, very thin oils and be used on miniatures. Today, we're not going to do any of that fancy stuff. We're using one standard consistency for the whole mini. So it's pretty easy. We're just going to thin down the paint to be about the same consistency as we'd use for layer paints with acrylics. So I forgot to turn the camera on for a very important step that turned this brown turd into an actual tree stump for our dragon to be perched upon. But I'm going to pretend that that was on purpose so I can show that step later on in the video. What I am showing is the final cleanup step with a Q-tip and a little bit of mineral spirits on it to remove that oil paint for our final highlights. Today's video is brought to us by Anycubic and their new 3D resin printer, the Photon Mono X. The Photon Mono X brings a number of improvements to at-home resin printers. A massive 8.9-inch monochrome 4K LCD screen, which allows you to print at higher detail and accuracy. A new monochrome LCD screen also allows for very short layer exposure times, meaning your printing will be done 3 times faster. A 192 by 120 by 245 millimeter print plate, which is nearly twice as big as most resin printers on the market today. And because resin prints take the same amount of time to print, regardless of how many minis you can fit on that plate, you'll get much more printed in the same amount of time. I used the Mono X to print today's dragon as well as a lot of other minis recently. I gotta say, I really appreciate how easy it is to set up and use, and how quickly I can print really nice quality minis to paint for my games. A big thank you to Anycubic for supporting the channel and allowing me to put this printer through its paces. I've got a link below to this printer and others that Anycubic offer, and they do have some sales going on. Also, a little birdie told me they're gonna have some pretty sweet Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals happening. On to the dragon herself. What I'm going to do is just throw a bunch of colors on the palette. I'm not worried about picking the specifically perfect right color for this. The nice thing about oils is that they can blend very well as you're working and they don't dry out. So if I see a color and I don't exactly like how it looks on the model, I'll just mix a little bit more on my palette and go from there. And also, you don't need a whole big fancy set of oils to do this kind of work. You can buy starter sets of oil paints with 10, 12, 16 colors in them, and you'll have a palette that looks very similar to this one, or different based on what your needs are for the miniature. Check out this big fat brush. It is as thick around as my finger. And I'm just gonna start putting on base coats. I'm gonna put on some colors, mix some slightly different colors, slap those on as well, and add base coats across the entire model. The nice thing is where one color meets another, I can take my brush, swish it back and forth, and create a quick blend and transition of colors. This kind of thing could take so long with acrylics, but it's just so simple and straightforward with oils. As I'm painting, I decide that I want to draw some more attention to the face area of the dragon, so your eye will go there. So I decided to paint those a brighter color. Just because it's a green dragon doesn't mean that everything needs to be green. Let's live a little. So a great aspect to oil paints is that we can paint this whole big model in its base coats, and the paint will still be workable and somewhat wet by the time we're done. So that gets us ready for that very next step with no break in between. And here's our secret to painting such a big model in a fast amount of time without using an airbrush. And this is also why we primed the model in such bright colors. We're going to be using the subtractive method of painting. We're going to pull off the paint at the most raised edges and the highlighted areas, and we can see our bright highlights underneath. This is not only extremely satisfying to do, but is very quick as well. I'm using these big makeup sponges to pull the paint off the model. If you had a smaller section or a smaller model, you can actually cut these up or use something smaller like a smaller Q-tip or makeup sponge for those areas. I use those as well. And as I said, I've never really attempted this kind of two-step process to paint a big mini fast before, and it really is a lot of fun. There's definitely some areas to improve, and we can talk about that later. But for now, I'm just enjoying seeing how quickly this change happens. One area that I'm not really happy with as I'm pulling this paint off is actually the bright colors. You see, if I painted on a bright yellow or a bright orange onto the model and then I pull the paint off with the makeup sponge, there's not a whole lot of contrast there. So what I decided to do is go back with this pre-thinned oil paint called Engine Grease by Abteilung 502. And I just put that right over our yellow sections, and it gives us that proper contrast that we can still build back up to a yellow, and our eye will read it as such. I did save painting the top sides of the wings for last after I had completed both the painting and the removal step for the rest of the dragon. And that was because I was kind of using them as something to hold on to or to keep the dragon stable while I was painting, and I didn't want to be smudging paint around. But also I decided that I wanted to have a bit of a pattern on these wings. And it's really cool that you can paint on the circles, paint the rest of the wings the colors you want, and then take a dry, clean brush and really just outline where those colors meet and have a natural transition from the orange to the green. Now really, you can certainly stop here and call this dragon done in just a few hours. But I want to see if I can push it a little bit more in what a couple more hours will do to a final product for us. I think there's a little bit of a vibrancy loss in the dragon's colors right now, and I want to see if I can bring that back fast and also cause some more attention to be drawn to the key parts of the model itself. So the next day, the oils are dried, and I just hit the model with a coat of matte varnish, and I'm going to bring out my acrylic paints. Yes, you don't need to worry about working with acrylics and oils on the same model. You just want to make sure that those oils are fully cured and that you have a good coat of varnish over top first. So I take a bright ivory color and I'm gonna try to boost areas that I want to be brighter. Those areas that are like edge highlights and that I really want to draw attention to. We're gonna add some more coloration to them later on, but for now I really just want to get them bright again. I wanted to take a quick moment and thank the patrons that have joined me already in this YouTube journey, your GD legends. If you want to support the channel, Patreon is a great way to do so. We have a lot of gnarly rewards like a Discord where we can chat any day of the week, as well as access to my mildly crazy vlog where I post videos on a weekly basis about what's going on in my painting life. Thank you again for all your support. Back to the video. To build up our vibrancy, I grab a bunch of inks. Regular mini paints would work here just fine as well, but I do like the combination of pigment richness and thinness that inks bring. I do thin them a bit to start with water, just to make sure I don't go too far, and then I just use them to create a filter of bright color over the model where I need it to have a bit more punch. And my final step is to give a bit more love to our dragoness's face. It's our most important feature on the model, and so we're going to spend a little bit more time there, as well as painting her eyes and teeth. Now with this style, I can certainly continue to my heart's content and push the quality of the miniature as much as I like. I could use more oils in the shadows to create more interesting depth. I could use some more inks to add some variations of colors, and I could do more edge highlighting and spot details with standard acrylic paints. But for now, I feel like this dragon is worthy of a total party kill for my D&D group, so I'm gonna call her done. I really enjoyed trying out something new in this video, and I hope some of you enjoyed it as well. I gotta remind myself that I can't be afraid to try something new, get out of my comfort zone, because that's really where we grow and improve as painters or in any other aspect of our lives. I appreciate all your support, and if you like this video, you know what to do. We'll see you next time.
Hey, you wanna go in the garage and do some karate? Yeah, well, I painted like 1,000,000 dragons yesterday. Hey man, snug at night. Let's go.